Gentlemen, were you aware that we are sitting at the crossroads of a new generation in 2025? That's right. We are moving into Generation Beta. The alphas are done, the Zoomers have been done for a while, and now we have Generation Beta. In light of the recent TikTok drama, which has been threatened to be shut down in the United States. Now, the people most worried about this shutdown are mostly Gen Alpha, but some Zoomers as well. But there's something interesting that has emerged in light of what's happened over the past 20 years, give or take. So you might remember George Carlin's lines from back in the day when he was doing a stand-up towards the end of his life, where he said something to the effect of, what the elites want, what the corpos want, is obedient workers. They want obedient workers that are just smart enough to do the work that's required, but too dumb to question things. Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing extemporaneously right now. But that's essentially what he said, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. People who rule over us don't want us to question things, generally speaking. That's normal. That's always been the case. But they also want you to be smart enough to be able to do things. Now, something very interesting has happened over the last couple of years, specifically with Generation Alpha and to a lesser degree Zoomers, and that is what's happened with TikTok, the so-called TikTok generation. So setting aside the possibility that TikTok might be shut down in the not-too-distant future, there's another side effect due to TikTok, and that is the attention span crisis. Now, everyone knows about this, but on top of that, there are serious scientists, neurologists, psychologists who investigated the TikTok phenomenon in earnest, and they've determined, unsurprisingly, that interacting with TikTok, the sort of zap through it all, short attention span types of videos, when you're still in the developmental stages of your brain as a young person, as a child, as a teenager, is highly detrimental to your neurological health and highly detrimental to your future. Because what you're doing, of course, as a young person when you're zapping through TikTok videos of, say, 20 to 30 seconds, is you are accumulating habits, and the habits that you accumulate as a child are the ones that tend to stick for the rest of your life. And of course, we also have genetic proclivities. We're talking about the environmental factor here. But imagine having a genetic proclivity for something like that. You have a short attention span to begin with, and you hop onto TikTok, and it amplifies it 100-fold. And of course, you can change habits as an adult, but it's really, really hard, as many of you could probably attest to. So essentially, what's happened in recent years with the youngest generation Alpha, and I think to a lesser degree Zoomers, is that they have been zapping their brains with this stuff, and it's been tremendously harmful to their development, psychologically, neurologically, physiologically. Now, what's the problem here when we're trying to connect the dots? The current generation, alphas, and the soon-to-be next generation, the betas, being born right now, these generations will be the generations, quite possibly, with the shortest attention spans on planet Earth, maybe ever. And the problem here, if you think about it from a corporate perspective, is you want people to be dumb enough, obviously, so they don't question what you say, what you think, and your directives, but you also want people who are smart enough, and more importantly, you want people who can focus long enough to do the goddamn work that you demand of them. Now, what happens when you have the double whammy effect of wanting workers who are just dumb enough to not question what you want, but also just smart enough to do the things that you need them to do, who absolutely lack the attention span to focus for more than 20, maybe 30 seconds tops? Your system is broken. If the current generation can barely focus on anything more than a few seconds, what possible work out there could they do? Think about it. Even the most basic of things. Let's say you're a waiter at a restaurant. You need to take orders. You need to remember things. You need to be able to focus. You need to be able to focus for more than 20 or 30 seconds, absolutely, because you have multiple orders to focus on. That's a basic job, a lot of people would argue. The same could apply to a lot of other jobs. Never mind much more complex jobs like plumbing, electrician, accountancy. I don't think we need to ask P.D. the Punani Slayer if his job would be possible to do if he could only focus for 20 or 30 seconds. It's kind of obvious. Basically, any job in existence right now requires more focus and more attention than the TikTok generation can deliver. And considering that, what do you think the powers that be are going to do? Not very much. You see, a lot of people, I think, are under the illusion, I think, and I also would say delusion, that everything's directed in a perfect way, that the powers that be, the corpos, the people who rule over us, know exactly what they want, and they do exactly what they want, and it's all some sort of grand master plan that always works out perfectly. Far from it. Everyone is a human being. The corpos are human beings as well. For example, I'm sure many of you have caught wind of the drama, the latest drama with Elon Musk, where he faked his high placement in the game Path of Exile 2 and got into a beef with Asmongold. Yeah, people have egos, they have psychological problems, they're not perfect. And what's happened with the TikTok generation, they have walked into a booby trap because they've fried their brains, especially Generation Alpha. And what do you think they're going to be able to do in life? I mean, forget about the work quandary for now. It's huge, but let's forget about it. What about driving a car? Driving a car requires some degree of concentration. You can't get distracted, or at least too distracted, because what happens then? You get into accidents, people can die. Do you think Generation Alpha, the TikTok generation, is going to be as good or as competent drivers as people who preceded them, who were not enslaved to the short attention span economy? Probably not. This affects literally everything they're doing. Having a conversation with somebody, sitting down at a cafe or a restaurant. They are always distracted. I've seen this. I've observed this. I've talked to people with Generation Alpha children. Now, there's some progenitors out there who are smart, and they do their best to keep their offspring away from such things. But let's be honest. Parental intervention only works to a certain degree. And eventually, peer pressure, and specifically peer group interests, trump parental interests. This is, of course, a natural thing because we are human animals, human apes, and we try to work within the confines of our peer group, not our parental group. And then, that's where the magic happens. Because let's say you've decided that you are going to prevent your offspring from interacting with these types of harmful technologies until age 15 or 16, or even 18. And by then, the child becomes so frustrated and, dare I say, obstreperous that they just demand it and you eventually give in. What then? Sure, you spare them the worst of it. Hell, even if you wait until 18, 18 is still young, your brain is still not entirely developed, and it begs the question, what can anyone do? Well, pretty much nothing. This has never happened before in the history of civilization. Attention spans were not always this short. It's manufactured. Now, of course, due to genetic differences, people vary in their ability to pay attention and hold attention for a prolonged period of time. There are other factors, such as degree of interest in a topic, obviously. But it really does beg the question, what is Generation Alpha and Generation Beta going to do in this attention economy that has totally crushed their attention spans? Just try to think about it. Work-wise, yes, that's the most obvious question. I mentioned a couple of examples in that area, but it really applies across the board if you think about it. Interpersonal relationships, the ability to drive a car, the ability to really focus on anything for more than a few seconds. And guess what? Generation Beta will probably be even worse off. Yes, it's possible that TikTok will get shut down in the context of the United States. So what? Someone will come up with an alternative. Because it's so powerful a tool and it's so profitable, someone will come up with something to hijack human attention yet again. So whether TikTok shuts down or not is immaterial. This generation going forward, in more ways than one, is completely screwed if you really think about it. Across the board. Because attention, prolonged attention of more than, say, 30 seconds or even 2 or 3 minutes, that is a thing that almost everything in life at some point in time requires. Whether it's a basic conversation, work, driving, even playing a video game. Imagine longer video games. You think Generation Alpha can deal with that? Nope, they can't. They simply do not have the attention span to deal with it. So, this is fascinating to me because you have this collision of failed interests. On the one hand, they want obedient worker bees that are not too smart but also not too dumb. And on the other hand, and it's not just TikTok, look at YouTube Shorts, for example, they're wildly popular. They've implemented forms of technology that are ruining people's ability to be functional, period, across the board, just plain functional human beings. So I would say at the end of this, the corpos done effed up. They've made a giant bed, and here's the thing, the corpos who are much older, they don't need to lie in the bed. Generation Alpha, Zoomers to a lesser degree, and going forward, Generation Beta will have to lie in this bed, and they're probably screwed. Not all of them, but enough of them, maybe even most of them. Anyway, as always, thank you for tuning in. Many special thanks to my very generous patrons on Patreon and my generous donors on PayPal. You guys are the best. Without you, the channel could not exist. Thank you so much. And if you hit the bell icon to be reminded of my videos, to know that those videos are being put out, it'd be appreciated, as would be if you hit the like button, share the video, sub if you're not yet a sub, leave a comment. It's much appreciated as well. If I'm still alive, I'll check you out then. Until the next time, may the gods watch over you. Bye-bye for now.
If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.